welcome to Invictus Porsche for another review of a Porsche 911. And today we have with us this Porsche 997 Generation 2 Turbo. It's on a 2009 plate, which, as many of you know, is the Generation 2. Just to give you a bit of a context on the 911 Turbo, you had the famous Widowmaker, the 964, then the 993, the 996 after, and then the first generation of the 997 Turbo, and here we have the 997 Generation 2 Turbo. There are quite a few stark differences between all these generations of the turbos, and I've been fortunate enough to drive quite a few of these various models going up to the 911 991 Turbo S. But in my opinion, the best of the lot is the Generation 2 997 Turbo, because this is truly a classic, if not definitely a modern classic. Seeing the way the values of these cars have gone up is phenomenal. And in the next 5 years, this is definitely a 100 grand car. And with a mileage of 18,597 miles, I don't think there's anything that comes comparatively close to a 997 Generation 2 Turbo on the market with this sort of a mileage and a spec. From a spec point of view, nothing comes comparatively close to this 911 997 Turbo. You've got to remember for a moment that we had a global recession in and around the time when they introduced the Generation 2 997 Turbos. So not many were sold. Despite that, those that were sold were nowhere near the spec this is at. It has the basil black metallic paintwork with a paint code of C9Z with these gorgeous Edition 2 turbo alloys. Some of the softer spec elements are the LED daytime running lights, which come standard from factory, and I love the return of these round headlights shape back to the 911, you know, a complete change from the 996. And as you make your way towards the back of the vehicle, obviously this has the Generation 2 997 engine, which is the direct fuel injected engines, and it's not as if the first generation had any issues, you know, i.e. from a scoring point of view or from anything else that you may have heard, because they were based on the Mesca design engines and they're absolutely phenomenal. But obviously the Generation 2 brings it that extra level of reliability, revised suspension, revised cooling system, and the subtle change to that rear bumper, as well as the subtle change of the front bumper with the larger air intake. This also has that beautiful spec option of the Porsche Active Dynamic engine mounts, as well as having the Chrono Sports Plus pack, whereby you get this lovely chrono watch on the main on the dash. This is the third 997 Turbo that we've had this year, and none of them had the aluminium doors, and obviously that has saved some weight. But it's also, when you open and close it, it sounds rather different. Also, it has the parking sensors, which are brilliant to have, especially when you're reversing. Let's get on the inside and talk about the spec on the inside. Nothing beats the Carrera red natural leather interior. I mean, just look at it for a moment. This is phenomenal. It is so brilliant. I love it. And the fact the rest of the spec is also absolutely top notch. Having the 14-way, actually the 18-way adjustable memory seats and the sports seats, which work rather well together, because the sports seats sort of already hug you quite well, but being able to have the seats adjusted to your sitting or your driving position makes a world of a difference. It's the small little touches that makes this an exquisite car, such as having the Porsche crest embossed on the headrest. The front seats are also heated with the sports steering wheel, the highly sought after dual clutch PDK gearbox that was introduced in the Gen 2 997, and obviously from a performance point of view, this is a world apart from the automatic gearbox that was in the Gen 1 997. As well as I've talked about on the exterior, it has the PASM, the Sport Plus, the Sports and the Chrono Sports watch. On top of that, it's got maps and Bluetooth connectivity to pick up and drop telephone calls, having Bose, and the memory seats are an essential item to have, especially if you're going to be sharing the vehicle with another user, because the two keys can be programmed individually to those two users. I did say we were going to talk about the engine on the 997 Generation 2 Turbo, and it is something out of this world. Well, the new flat 6 engine now has a one-piece crankcase, high pressure direct fuel injection, a pair of variable geometry blowers, unequal length intake manifolds, larger intercoolers, and a free flow exhaust with two separate catalysts. The power is up from 473 brake horsepower to 493 brake horsepower at 6,000 RPM, while torque climbs from 640 Newton meters of torque to 650 Newton meters of torque, with a later delivered all the way from 1950 to 5,000 RPM. And if you spec the Chronos Sport Pack like it is with this 911 997, an overboost facility delivers a stonking 700 Newton meters of torque for up to 10 seconds at a time. And that is something to speak about. From a service history point of view, it is absolutely critical to have a good service history. To some people it might not matter, but in the Porsche world, to some degree, it does matter having good service history. This has a full Porsche main dealer service history, last serviced in August 2020. And in terms of the number of previous owners, in total, this has 5 owners. And up until 2008, it only had 3 owners since new. So the last 2 owners were added between 2008 and 2021. 5 is still a very manageable number of owners. And looking at the condition of the car, it's in pretty pristine condition, both inside and outside. And I don't think one can do much better than this 911 997 Turbo. So I hope you've enjoyed the review. And if you've got any questions about this 911 or something else in our stock, feel free to ask and get in touch.